What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. For our first question, Dennis Lofgren asks if we'll see Hayden Christensen acting as Darth Vader without the helmet on in the Kenobi series.
Oh, Pippin, be careful, please. I think you have to. Like, you don't bring Hayden Christensen back to not show his face at all. Like, I think he likes being the person in the Vader suit. He requested that he do that in Revenge of the Sith, but that was for a couple shots, one scene.
I think, more likely we're gonna see a flashback of Anakin than we are Vader without his helmet.
I think both. I kind of think we'll do something like Ahsoka versus Vader. Maybe not exactly the same, but like this is going to get a wider audience than Star Wars Rebels did just because it's live action. So like if they tread some of the same ground, it's like it's okay, it'll kind of get a pass. But I think that we're gonna, yes, flashback, but I also think he will be the person in the suit, and I think we will get, whether he's in his meditation chamber or some battle damage, or even if he wants to like hold his breath and look at Kenobi in the eyes for a second, like I think we're gonna see him maskless but still in the suit.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what he's going to look like. Will he have eyebrows?
Oh, big question.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess no. Place your bets.
Probably not. Depends on how much scarring he's still got, how bad he still looks.
The last time they changed Vader's face in Return of the Jedi, they took the eyebrows away. So I assume that is Lucas's vision that they will be honoring. No eyebrows, Anakin.
I mean, that makes sense with all the burns. David McLeod wants to know if Ian McDermott could appear in the Kenobi series as well.
I always talk about like, oh, Palpatine this, Palpatine that, but that's more of like a bringing him back from the dead. I'd be down for him being in the Kenobi show for sure.
Yeah, again, I really hope we get to see a good amount of flashbacks, and it would be really cool to see Anakin and Palpatine just having one of their little talks.
I like that idea. Just, we've talked before about how the Clone Wars does a better job because it has more time, obviously, but it shows the relationship between Anakin and Palpatine, where the movies, they have a relationship, but it's much more hinted at. They have like a couple scenes together. We don't get to see them as like friends and a mentor. So it would be really fun to have ObiWan, Anakin, and Palpatine and do kind of like the old angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, but Obi-Wan is missing it and he's kind of thinking back to like, oh, all these signs that I missed or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it makes sense for Palpatine to be in this series. So I'm on board for it.
KJB Wicks asks when we'll see Hondo come back in either animation or live action.
I'm surprised he hasn't really yet. And it's something where he fits in any universe. Like, and he's related to so many characters. He's in just about every era of Star Wars except the High Republic right now. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how long he lives. I'm surprised that he's in the sequel era, but
I could see him popping up in The Mandalorian, maybe even the Ahsoka series, Rangers of the New Republic.
That's what's crazy is when you list off the things that are happening now or are coming, you're like, yeah, he could work in all of this. Mm-hmm. He could be in the Bad Batch. He was in the Clone Wars. He was in Star Wars Rebels. So having him in another animated show makes sense. He could be in Ahsoka. He knows Ahsoka. He could be in Kenobi. He knows Kenobi. Like, he could be
in this room right now.
Yeah. He's always right here.
Yeah. Andrew Sandoval wants to know if we'll ever see an R-rated Star Wars movie. Now, this comes up quite often. We've gotten this question a few times.
It's that time of year where we get the R-rated Star Wars question. And I guess just the fact that it does keep popping up means I'm like, I guess we should address it again. And I do think that my answer has changed over the years, where I think if you even jumped back, like right when I started this channel, people would ask that, and I would be like, I'd love to see one. I don't think it'll happen. Now I'm like, I don't think it'll happen still, at least not for a long time. But B, I'm like, yeah, I don't think Star Wars needs that. I don't know what an R rating would add to Star Wars. I'm like getting more into that camp.
Yeah, it would just mean more violence.
And why? Like,
yeah,
I see people. I think it's just because everyone kind of goes through that phase. I know I did, where you're like in your. It's like when you're in your 20s and you're just like, ooh, R-rated movies made for me, an adult, and it's
your
like
20s.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's what it starts when you're 17 and you can go see an R-rated movie and it's like a big deal. And I think it just kind of it kind of got into my head that I'm like, yeah, now these are the movies made for me. But it makes me think back to our friend Patrick Willems did a great video on R-rated superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And like, why do they exist? Do they need to exist? And there's often such a, like, you look back at, oh, well, that's made for kids. But so many of the best things of the superhero genre were made for kids, like the Batman animated series. Everyone like loves that series and says it's the best representation of Batman ever.
Mm-hmm.
Made for kids.
Yeah.
Accessible to adults. But like, that's kind of where I think Star Wars should live, where it's accessible to all ages.
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of people bring up the MCU, DC, and like a lot of the super violent R-rated type stuff that we've seen now in Marvel and DC have come from the comic books, which are also very violent, but it's like a comic book, so you can get away with it a little bit easier.
And even the comic books are like, yeah, some are violent, some aren't, and they're all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know that adding brutality needs to happen in Star Wars. And not to mention, you can still set Anakin on fire in Revenge of the Sith and get a PG-13 rating. So it's not like you can't have that, like, oh my god moment.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like it's a blood thing. Like, if there's a ton of blood on screen, R-rated. But you can still have a ton of violence on screen, but no blood. It's all right.
It's just like, I remember with Fallen Order, everyone was like begging to know, can you dismember people with your lightsaber? And it's like, I mean, in Dark Forces 2, when you could cut a stormtrooper's arm off and see it fly across the room, I was like, wow, like I'm loving this as a little 13-year-old kid. The older I get, the less I'm like, yeah, that's what Star Wars needs.
Yeah. Caleb Sexton asks why Star Wars ships have names like A or X-Wing when their alphabet is different from ours.
We've had this one too, but it got a lot of likes. So people want to know. And it's just that Star Wars has more than one alphabet. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And Arabesh is the most widely used.
And honestly, probably when they were just designing these ships, they weren't thinking, oh, you know what? We should use the Arabesh letters.
Well, yeah, they didn't exist in the original.
Yeah. This ship looks like an A. This ship looks like an X. There's your answer.
Yeah. The X and the Y just made sense. So that's the behind the scenes answer. In universe, there is an alphabet in Star Wars that follows our alphabet. So there is an X that looks like an X and a Y that looks like a Y. And there you go.
What's it called?
You had to ask. I don't know off the top of my head. I'll try to put it up in text. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon where we left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained content, like audio commentaries for the films, and we're doing audio commentaries for all the Clone Wars episodes, and this week it's The Gathering, the first episode of the Youngling arc, so that's available right now if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions. Joe Iorio asks if Grievous knew Palpatine was Darth Sidious.
I doubt it. I'm trying to think. There might be something that states one way or the other, especially in Legends, but I just don't see Sidious spreading that secret around too much.
Yeah, he worked mostly with Dooku, so I don't really see a reason for him to know whether or not that was Palpatine.
He does. We see in Revenge of the Sith, he gets a holo call from Sidious after Dooku is dead. He knows who Sidious is and is like, my lord. But yeah, I don't see him dropping that secret on Grievous, of all people.
Yeah. And he's so focused on his army and all that other stuff. Like, I don't think he cares to know the real identity of someone who he calls my lord.
Right. Someone who calls like every couple months. He just doesn't care.
Yeah.
I just Googled it to make sure I wasn't missing anything completely obvious. And the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which technically is Legends now, but, it's a novelization of a movie, so Legends-ish. But it states that Grievous had no idea. So there you go.
Mate Tareki wants to know if Thane Kyrell and Cyanna Ree could be in Rangers of the New Republic.
Could be. Yes. Will be. Probably not. Again, like, I don't want to get my Cobb Vanth hopes up just because it happened once, that now, like, every book character is going to be thrown into these stories. But Thane Kyrell and Cyanna Ree, again, is just someone that, well, you could introduce them to the new audience, so it could happen. I just wouldn't expect it.
Yeah, it's been so long since I read that book. It is a favorite book of mine, but yeah, you're right about, like, the characters could fit in, but I don't really see them doing it and then making them any more important. If that makes sense.
Cyanna, I'm like, I don't know that she would work with the New Republic. I don't know that they would let her work with the New Republic unless the Rangers of the New Republic is going to be some sort of Suicide Squad deal where it's like, if you work with us and go on these crazy missions, then we'll forgive you of your time with the Empire or something like that. But I doubt that's what the show's plot is going to be.
Elsa Rules asks, who would have trained Anakin if Obi-Wan had left the Jedi Order to be with Satine?
I assume if Qui-Gon had taken another Padawan, he would have just made the same, like, dying wish to that Padawan. So whoever Qui-Gon was training, I think, was just destined to train Anakin.
Okay. Hans Mort Tophole wants to know how many of the Thrawn-related characters could appear alongside him when he shows up in live action.
So Aralani, Eli Vanto, Pelion, any of those. Maybe Pelion because he was already affiliated with the Empire, but I don't think the Chiss Ascendancy characters are going to be around at all.
Yeah, I'm like, no one would know who they were unless they had, like, read the books or the comics. It would be cool to see Aralani, just to see, like, another Chiss.
I'd love to see more Chiss, but I'm really expecting them to treat Grand Admiral Thrawn in the live action shows as just the straight villain. The books, he's like much more of I wouldn't even say an anti-hero. He's treated as a hero by Timothy Zahn, I think, and I just don't see the shows doing that. I think they're just going to have him come in and be the villain he originally was, like in Heir to the Empire. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to fight against him and kill him.
Otherwise, it's too confusing for people who, the casual viewers.
It's a lot to explain where Thrawn is like, well, I'm only part of the Empire so that I can help protect my Chiss Ascendancy, which is about to be overrun by these species called the Grisk. And, like, you can't do all that. So I think that they're going to have the show where he's the villain. And then afterwards, Timothy Zahn will probably write a book justifying all of his actions.
L.S. Dean asks if we'll ever see characters from Alphabet Squadron again, and where would they show up?
Maybe, like, this is another one where, like, Nath could show up in Rangers of the New Republic. I feel like now I have that Suicide Squad idea in my head where, like, he would fit well there. But I'm not really expecting to see them. I kind of think that they were characters for this book. Maybe they'll be referenced every once in a while, but their trilogy is over, and I think that's probably all we're going to see from them for the most part.
Yeah. I don't see them coming into any live action even though it would be cool.
I could play Will. Oh, but he has a beard in Victory's Price. And I can't. It sounded like he had a pretty decent beard, too. Couldn't do that.
I don't know. It could pop up in a comic or something. You never know.
Sure. It's always possible, but their story was so, like, I felt like it was done and self-contained, and I liked all 3 books and how it all ended, so I'm kind of like, I'm okay if they just get to rest now as characters and people. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. Hi, Pippin.